Awesome. All right. Questions for Jordan. First one, James Crepia, the Oregonian.
Jordan, I asked you about a couple of your teammates first. With Jazz out, I'm sure you're again happy for her personally. But just who do you think will fill in for her over at short? And with Shay, I was asking Haley this, but since she's caught you before, have you ever had a catcher who? I mean, I know catchers are always really tough. It's a grueling position, but to play through the hand injury she had a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, and then the hip this past year, have you ever had a catcher that tough who was willing to, and able to play through that much?
Yeah, we're all of us are personally happy for Jazz. She's a wonderful person. She's great with kids, and we're super excited for her. We're excited to kind of be with her along her journey with this new adventure of hers. As far as shortstop goes, we have a lot of different competitors that are willing to kind of fight for that spot and take over while she's gone. We've got a lot of freshmen that came in this year. Alyssa, Hannah Delgado, Taya, all of them, they're doing really well right now in practice over there. So it's kind of hard to say, who's going to kind of play at shortstop for us. We even have Allie Bunker kind of practicing all over the field, Rachel Sid, Ariel Carlson, all of our infielders are kind of super versatile in the infield. And as far as Shay goes, she's definitely one of the toughest players I've ever played with. Her being catching me the majority of my first year here, and we spent a lot of time together, and to see her kind of fight through that hand injury was insane. As well as last year with her hip. I mean, she's just tough. She's a fighter, and she's so much fun to be around because she just brings life to the game, and she talks and she communicates so well behind the plate. Same thing with Tara, same thing with Val, all of them. They all were great catchers last year for us. And so I don't know if there's anyone as tough as Shay, honestly. I don't know. I don't know if I would have been able to do what she did the last couple of years, fighting through the things she did. But I definitely think catchers in general usually are probably one of the toughest ones on the field each time you step out there.
Next question, Ashley Conklin, the registered guard.
Jordan, just going back to a couple of years ago when you kind of had to shoulder basically all the pitching mode, just what was that like for you both physically and mentally? And then last year, what do you think of the pitchers you guys brought in last year and your pitching depth going forward now into 2021?
That first year was definitely a huge year for me personally. Growing up, everybody, of course, wants to be the number one pitcher on whatever team, the best team they can possibly find. I mean, we're all competitive athletes. If you're here at this level, that's what you want to do. But I don't think people truly understand how important having a staff is until you go without one. So for me to come out here, I'm in great shape. I'm a super competitive athlete. I thought, I'll be able to handle it and do whatever I need to do for my team. They obviously need me to pitch a lot more. But just the reality of college athletics and college softball in general these days, we're playing 60 games a year. It's basically impossible, and so I think you started to kind of see that happen about halfway through the year that year. It was more of a mental toll than it really was physically. I think my body physically, I was able to still compete. Obviously, I eventually hit a point where, my speed started to drop a little bit. And even though I didn't feel sore or anything like that, you could just see that I was tired. But it was more of like a mentally tiring situation because you're having to face the Pac-12 teams that are the best teams in the country. Our conference, I hands down believe, is the toughest conference out there. And having to play these teams 3 times in a weekend and me having to pitch against them all 3 games, that first game is probably going to be your best game, realistically. It's their first time seeing you, and it was my first year in the Pac. And so that was probably always going to be my best game. And then that second game, it was kind of, half and half. The team's already seen you. You've already seen them. It's kind of more about working to kind of get those outs and just keep competing, and then that third game, for me, it was just, doing whatever I needed to do, trying to be as efficient as possible and trying to hit my spots because at that point I wasn't going to get the strikeouts that I was getting in that first game. So it was definitely a huge learning experience for me because I've always been a pitcher who likes to get her strikeouts. I've always been dominant in that area for the most part. So having to learn how to pitch without those strikeouts, having to learn how to get outs in other ways, whether it was pop outs or ground outs or whatever it may be, double plays. It was very interesting, and I think it helped my game grow personally and helped me like get set up for this past year. And then of course having those pitchers come in this previous year with Brooke and McKenna and Samaria, it was awesome. We all clicked instantly. They're super competitive. We all have wonderful personalities. We get along super well, and it was just so refreshing and nice to see other faces in the bullpen besides mine and the coaches. Like it was finally like I had like my own team within a team, and it was awesome to have that. And now this year we have another one with Reagan coming in as a freshman. I mean, it's so cool to see a staff truly work together and actually support one another, and understand the importance of having that staff instead of everybody trying to be like, I want to pitch every single inning possible. Of course, everybody wants to pitch as much as they can, but at the end of the day, if one of us has to come in or somebody else is getting the start, we're happy for one another. We're competing for one another. And if we have to come in for the other, we're saying we got your back. We're going to pick you up. So it's so awesome.
Next question, Jordan Brenner, KWVA.
Hey, Jordan, I'm wondering how you would assess your season last year, and from this last offseason, what were some of your primary focuses in training, areas that you wanted to improve? And then one more thing, McKenna had her moments last year when she got out there. She was really impressive. I'm wondering if you've seen any jump from her freshman to sophomore season, and whether you think she'll be more involved and get more innings this year.
Yeah. For me personally, my biggest thing was last year, I was dealing with a little bit of a tweak, when a muscle injury, I kind of tweaked my groin a little bit. So this past summer, I was really just trying to focus on getting healthy and getting strong. I've been fortunate enough to always pretty much be healthy for the most part for every college year that I've been in so far. I feel like I've been in college forever now, but I think my biggest thing that I focused on this summer was to get healthy, to start drinking more water, hydrating, making sure I'm fueling my body properly, because that was something that I was kind of fighting with a little bit throughout the year this past year. But fortunately, I stayed here this summer in Oregon, and I was able to train with our weight trainer, Coach Walden, and she was able to kind of help me get back fully healthy. And right now I feel like I say this every year, but I really am stronger than I've ever been. I feel like I'm in the greatest shape of my life. And that was a huge thing for me. I was, that was the kind of, it's my biggest thing ever since growing up is I'm not very big. So I've always wanted to just make sure that my mechanics have always been sound, and I'm going to outwork everyone in the weight room. That was always my goal. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to be the most in shape person out there, because that's something that I feel like personally helps me have an edge over my opponents, because I'm not 6 feet tall. I'm not 185 pounds. I don't throw 70 miles an hour. So that was something that I think I really focused on this past summer. And I think as of right now, it's definitely paid off. And as far as McKenna goes, McKenna, in my opinion, is one of the best pitchers in the country when she really wants to be herself. She's phenomenal. Her spin is out of this world. She can throw hard. She can mix speeds. Like she's awesome. So I think coming in this fall, I was able to kind of see, of course, in the spring, she had her moments where she was just absolutely dominating. I don't think she gave up a run all this past 2020 season. But she had a couple little bumps in the road, as most freshmen do. With the nerves, and especially competing in a staff like our staff. I mean, it's a little nerve-wracking and tough sometimes when you're first coming into college, but seeing her this fall, a lot of her misses are a lot smaller. She has a lot more confidence. She's a lot more comfortable. She's no longer the freshman in the group, so I think you're going to see a lot more from her this year.
Next question, Odalisa Hall, Daily Emerald.
All right. Thank you for your time, first off. My question is, COVID aside, obviously, we're all facing struggles, especially with college sports, super difficult. My biggest thing is, what do you think is going to be your team's biggest struggle this year, and how will we overcome that?
It's a good one. I would just say still managing to kind of keep those close contacts. I think, obviously, pre-COVID, I think this team is the closest team I've ever been on. We've always gotten along super well. We've always you pretty much couldn't go on campus without seeing us with one another. I mean, we were always together, always doing things together. We were super close. I mean, you could see that on social media. You could see that in person. You could see that on the field. Like, this team likes to have fun, and this team loves each other. Obviously, with COVID right now, we can't do that. We can't have be on campus together. We can't be in classes together. We can't hang out and go do all these crazy things and like have fun and make all these crazy TikToks with the whole team. You know, it's pretty much you're kind of hanging out with your own household. So it's a little different. You know, you kind of feel like you're in your own little bubble within obviously our athletics department bubble. But I think our biggest thing that we're going to have to overcome is finding ways to still be able to see one another while, of course, still being safe. You know, so maybe instead of all of us going to dinner together inside at a restaurant, we could go on a hike or go outside and just kind of enjoy each other's company and just make sure we're being safe about it. So I think that's the biggest thing right now. And it's kind of a little bit tough right now when it's kind of getting a little cold here in Eugene, but I think that's going to be our biggest goal for this next the next couple of months, is just to kind of make sure we're keeping those close contacts with one another and keep bonding.
Next one, James Crepia, the Oregonian.
Jordan, I'm not sure if you heard me ask Haley this, but I mean, she's not even going to be directly impacted because she'll be gone after this season. But how much have you been paying attention to the name, image, likeness hearings and negotiations and discussions and proposals and all that stuff, since it will impact you? And as somebody with like 36,000 and change followers on various platforms, what do you think it's going to mean for you on July 1 when that goes into play? And I mean, there's no argument it's going to happen. So what do you think it will mean for you? And secondly, with that being the lead policy of it, what do you think, like, because you'll have another year after this if you want it, what should the future of this sport be at the college level, whether it's not just NIL, because that's for everybody, but if it's head count instead of equivalency, if it's something like what is the future, what should it look like as somebody who has spent 4 years in 2 different schools and you'll benefit from NIL when it comes, what should this sport look like?
As far as this image and likeness stuff goes, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for all student athletes across the board. I know it's a tricky kind of policy that they've been working on for a while, and I'm really excited to see them have it come into play. My biggest thing is, you know, of course, there's a lot of pros and cons, people claiming that athletes shouldn't get paid or athletes shouldn't be able to do these things because we are getting scholarships. But from my point of view is there are non-athletes, you know, regular students that they have the same access to, let's say, academic scholarships. And then on top of that, they are able to profit off of their image and their likeness. Whereas we have the opportunity to get athletic scholarships, but not everybody does get an athletic scholarship. I think a lot of times people think that all athletes get athletic scholarships and full rides, and that is definitely not the case. So there are a lot of student athletes across the country that are paying for their own college, and yet they are also not allowed to profit off of their image and likeness, whereas a non-athlete would. So I think with them personally going about it in this image and likeness route, instead of necessarily maybe the schools paying the athletes directly, I think it's a great opportunity to kind of level the playing field, because for most student athletes, not many of us do get to go pro and make millions, you know, especially in female athletics. You know, the professional leagues, we definitely do not make as much money as, let's say, our male counterparts. So I think being able to kind of profit off of our image and likeness and build our own brands, and being able to kind of get that opportunity in college, where we have a lot of resources like our media people, like Darren, for instance, or other people within the athletic department and in our media departments, being able to kind of help us out along that road, I think it's an awesome opportunity. And I'm very excited to kind of be able to take part in that and see that, because I'm very interested to kind of see how things are going. And I know Haley's been doing a lot of work and helping out, which I think is even more awesome, because obviously she won't be able to profit off of it. And I know a lot of other student athletes that will be graduating that are helping out with that as well. And they won't get to profit off of that at all, as far as being an NCAA athlete and profiting off of their image and likeness, but they're still willing to help the people behind them because they know it's that important and it's that big of a deal. And as far as the game goes, I'm excited to kind of see how it keeps going. I definitely think there's a lot of different things that could possibly change throughout the next coming years, particularly because of this image and likeness rule going into effect soon. But I'm excited to kind of see where it goes. I haven't been paying too much attention to necessarily where the game is going, but the image and likeness stuff is definitely something that I've been involved in a lot, especially over probably the last 6 months. I've been discussing it with my coaches, with Darren, a lot of them, about different ways to go about it and what exactly I want to stand for on my platforms and how to build that.
Any other questions for Jordan? All right. Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah, of course.
Have a good one.
Thanks, you too.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I'll blast out the video recordings in a Dropbox link in a little bit. But if anyone needs anything else, let me know. Thanks
Thanks, Jim.
for joining us.